Think gadget reviews, news, and all about it.
Sony Xperia Z5 Compact Review. It costs about £100 less than its big brother, at around £430 SIM-free, or on contracts of around £37.50 a month. It's cheaper, but it's certainly not cheap. If you have money to burn and are just gagging for a smaller phone, it's your best bet. However, its chunky body doesn't actually make it feel as small as you might be hoping for, and now that the half-the-price Motorola Moto G has a good camera, the cheaper competition is all the more attractive. Tubby round the edges. I like the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact. It's a nice phone. But I have an issue with this little guy. He's really not that little in all respects. Calling an 8.6mm thick phone fat may sound like playground bullying, but the Z5 Compact really does feel like a little bit of a brick. A chubby funster next to the slick and svelte full-size Z5. It's not unusual for smaller phones to be a bit chunky, but the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact emphasizes this with its very rectangular shape. It may have virtually the same dimensions as the Xperia Z3 Compact, but in the years since that phone's release plenty of 5-inch skinny phones have arrived, almost, but not quite, bridging the size gap. This kind of chunk factor does make the Xperia Z5 Compact feel like lesser hardware than the Z5. Sony pretty much endorses this idea too. Where the big brother has metal sides, this one has plastic sides, which feel more ordinary. On the positive side, using plastic also gets rid of the hard lip the Z5 has on its back. Enough of the bad-mouthing, there's still a lot to like about the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact hardware. Top of the list is the back style. It's covered with frosted glass. It looks great, feels great and comes in a few different colors. I've been using the boring black version, but you can also get pink, yellow and white. It's also a must-try for those who find today's phones that bit too big. While brick-like, the Z5's still petite. Fingers in pies. The star attraction of the phone, though, is what sits on its side. It looks like a power button, and it is. But that big gray button also functions as the Xperia Z5 Compact's fingerprint scanner. It's right where it needs to be, is reliable and quick. It's just what we want from a phone finger scanner. It doesn't like wet fingers, but then neither do all the current phone scanners. Like the other members of the Xperia Z5 Compact family, the phone is also waterproof, and the best kind. It's waterproofing that doesn't demand daily reseating of flaps. The USB and headphone jacks are designed not to let in water without needing a bit of rubber to help. Sony says you shouldn't submerge the phone anymore, but its certification is just the same as the old Xperia Z's. There is one flap on the side, but it covers the SIM and microSD slots. How often are you going to need to open that one up? With 32 GB in built storage, you might not even need a memory card. But having the option earns Sony 10 bonus points. Superstar Small FRY. The whole point of the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact is that it's a high-end phone with a small screen. It's just 4.6 in across, a lot smaller even than phones like the Moto G. It's no wonder the phone's a bit chunky when all its tech has to be crammed into such a small footprint. It has a 720p IPS LCD screen, getting you a Retina Grade A like 323p, but not the sort of crazy pixel density you get with a larger QHD phone like the Samsung Galaxy S6, or Sony's own insane 806p 4K screen Z5 Premium. Does it matter? The Sony Xperia Z5 Compact has a nice screen, good color, good viewing angles. However, the thought of paying £450 for a 720p phone might put your defenses up. In which case, forget about the £539 iPhone 6s too. We understand. This phone is definitely for people who just hate the idea of a giant screened phone and are willing to pay pretty big. After all, By reducing the screen size, the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact does reduce how good films, games and websites look. I also found that typing took a bit of adjustment, where I can flip between using 5 and 6-inch screens dead easily these days. What I'm trying to get to here is, make sure you definitely want a small screen phone, and don't just think you want one. Also bear in mind that the chunk factor makes the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact feel not a million miles removed from something like the Microsoft Lumia 435. It might not be as sleek as you're hoping for. Small frame, big battery. One thing that helps excuse the compact's size, though, is its battery stamina. Where I found the full-size Xperia Z5 to be a bit of a stamina slouch after a string of long-lasting Xperias, the Z5 Compact lasts for ages. Playing a locally stored 720p movie it soldiers on for 16 hours, and in day-to-day use it's a trooper too. Even on a day when I use the little guy to stream several hours of podcasts over 4G, spent my usual small eternity on WhatsApp and went around town taking some snaps, it still sailed to bedtime with 28% battery left. By contrast, the full-size Xperia Z5 would have been dead for a couple of hours given the same treatment. Look at the specs and it's not hard to understand why. The Sony Xperia Z5 Compact has a 2700 mAh battery. The Z5 has just 200 mAh extra with a 2900 mAh unit, even though it has a much larger, much higher resolution display. While I don't love that the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact has a premium price but build that's only premium in parts, this phone isn't half easy to live with. It has that road warrior reliability that most of this year's flagships don't. The rest simply tend not to last long enough. A cold shoulder. Funnily enough, I also found that the Z5 Compact doesn't tend to get nearly as warm as the Xperia Z5, even though they have more or less the same insides. Getting a bit warm up at the top of the rear is an Xperia family heirloom, and sure enough the Compact doesn't stay as cool as something like the iPhone 6s. But it's way less of an issue than in any of the full-size Xperias I've used over the last year. Do the thicker body and less power-sapping screen help out? It certainly looks that way. At the core of the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact is the same Snapdragon 810 used in the larger Z5. It's a top-tier 2 GHz processor backed up 2 GB RAM. This phone may have a go-kart body, but it has a sports car engine. Performance is generally great, the camera being the only bit that seems to slow the phone down at times. In Geekbench 3 it scores 4,280 points, which is right at the level we'd expect for a top-end Snapdragon phone right now. Without wanting to sound like Eeyore, there is a question of what that power will get you, though. The Snapdragon 810 has enough muscle to play high-end 3D games on QHD resolution phones, so isn't it a bit wasted on a 720p screen? Rendering fewer pixels needs less power. Sure, the thing'll probably run games better for longer as a result, but then the next generation of Snapdragon processors are sure to be a lot more efficient than the Snapdragon 810, which already lags behind the alternatives from Apple and Samsung Exynos. That's where we're at with processors now, efficiency rather than pure power is king. Still, if you care more about the here and now, the Sony Xperia Z5 Compact is great. As well as having a fast CPU, the software is fast too.